keep track of the time here. My mother and I have spoken a number of occasions for actions years ago, especially the first Armistice Day, which we had going to Pipestone back in 1987. And she'd always, like at church or the Mass there, she would put a clock in front of her with the alarm on it and have it ticking. Well, I won't have the ticker, but I'll take a look at it. About 3-4 years ago, I was coming back. Well, Ron Seeger, will you stand up, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Ron is from Fargo. Comes down here, Veterans for Peace chapter, on a Peacestock. He usually flies in. This time he rode in. But I was coming back from Fargo late at night from his church on Armistice Day, his Unitarian church, speaking about armistice. And I pulled over to this town, northern Minnesota. It's probably about 9 o'clock at night, called Frazee. People know where that is. I've been there a couple of times, but I stopped in, I forget if it was the VFW or American Legion. And I came in there, I went in to ask the bartender, I said, "Do you mind if I went around and asked people to get some signatures here about nuclear weapons, for nuclear weapons disarmament?" And he says, "Yeah, that's okay as long as you don't bother them." There was this woman standing right next to me and him, and my God, I've heard about the evil eye before, but this was it. And she was going around to the tables, and she said, "This man is trying to take away our nuclear weapons." And so I did. I went around to the tables, and I got about 7 or 8 signatures, but she was kept at it. She was hounding me all the while and telling them, but some of them were still signing. I got out there, and as I was driving away, I thought, hey, I'm pretty powerful if I can do that, take away all those weapons. So, but anyway, that was part of a campaign that Women Against Military Madness started in 2017, just after the treaty to ban nuclear weapons got a vote of 122 to 1 hands or voice vote in the UN to ban all nuclear weapons, to make it illegal. And so WHAM started a campaign, that's Women Against Military Madness, to start getting petitions, signatures, to support that for our, they were going to turn them into the Congress people. And I heard about it. And I've had some experience with petitions over the years. During the nuclear freeze, we had like 20,000 of them with 20 doors for the School of the Americas that we took down there. John LaForge had a good petition here that still is really applicable with the nuclear silos that were mentioned here, to get rid of those, be less targets if nothing else. Kellogg Re-Impact with about 13,000 signatures, and I think the Pipestone, where we got for nuclear disarmament for 2009. So when I heard about that, I got a hold of the late Marie Brown, and I said, "I'd like to join this." And she said, "Sure. Come along to our meeting." My wife and I are members of WHAM. And so they were talking about these 2,000 signatures, that was their goal to get. I thought about that, and I said, let's get every town and city in Minnesota. Kind of looked, taken aback, and I said, okay. So that's what happened. That's what we started. That's why I was in Frazee on the way back. It was getting too late to get too many more towns on the way back. But on that campaign, been to all 4 corners, like Bill said, of Minnesota. It's a beautiful state. You go through here, it's very diversified. It's the first time I ever seen sugar beets. You go down through the winding roads of southeastern Minnesota. You go out to the plains of by Pipestone, up in northwestern Minnesota. Sugar beets, and of course everybody knows what the North Woods are like. And you think about that beauty, and you think about nuclear weapons. The state of Minnesota is quite large. It's over 400 miles, north and south, more diagonally, and depending on where you're at, it's over 200 miles usually east to west. It's a lot of small towns there. And what I set out, we wanted the numbers, of course, and but what I set out to do was to go into places where nuclear weapons, as Colleen says, it can happen at any time right now. But that isn't just now. That's been happening since we first dropped the bomb in 1945. It's escalated now, but it's been around. What I wanted to bring into attention where there's not a lot of talk about nuclear weapons. And I went into places where, on Main Street especially, for example in St. Peter, just, the stores down there, it could be a jewelry store, it could be a general store, it could be the bars and taverns, a lot of American Legions, VFWs, butcher shops, the back of the butcher shops, you name it, bait shops. We took the bus out once the Pipestone, a bunch of us were Veterans for Peace, and on the way we got signatures. And we got them where we could, like if there's a garage sale. I know one time I was driving the bus and there wasn't anybody there but the grain elevator, and that he wasn't from Minnesota, so we got out. I was driving the bus and there was this person that pulled out their SUV, and I rolled down the window at the stop sign and I said, "I've got this petition, you're going to think I'm crazy." I said, "Would you like to sign it for disarming nuclear weapons?" "Sure, hand it over." So she signed it, took it off, and we went on our way. But that sort of thing, we had it on, when Craig Wood and I, he's not here today, we took the bus out, I think, on 3 or 4 occasions, like we stayed on a video overnight, Ely, Minnesota, Hibbing, and Bemidji. And we'd go into all kinds of taverns and stuff, and we'd stop at a gas station to fill up the bus, and Craig would get signatures while I was filling up the bus at the gas station. And Craig's very persuasive in the Legions, although you have a beer or two now and then, I don't drink, to get people. And when we pull up, it'd be late at night because it's about the only activity in some of these small towns. When you pull up with the Veterans for Peace bus, I don't know if you've all seen it, it's quite a sight to see coming into a small town. People are outside smoking, outside the bar. Here you got this bus up there that says Veterans for Peace, abolish war. They look at us like, once again, who are these people? So we asked them to get signatures. We were in a lot of Trump country, and we got signatures there. People, when you tell them that this treaty is for everybody, they would sign. People had their concerns. Like they'd say, well, we can't trust Russia, we can't trust Putin, we can't trust that little guy over in Korea, this is too idealistic. Of course, my favorite line about this is I think it's too idealistic to think that we can survive or go on as we have. But the luck, I shouldn't say the luck, the support was there. The problem is, as it has been for many years, even during the nuclear freeze, people are willing to go along with this, but they're not willing to put in the work to do it. When Gorbachev came here, which is one of the best, into the Twin Cities in 1990, he and his wife, it's one of the best times I can ever remember in the peace movement. He came here and crowds welcomed him. He went and spoke where I worked at the time at Control Data. And when he left, to get on that airplane, and I live close to the airport, people were gathered in the streets. A lot of people that, hey, where were you all getting signatures for the nuclear freeze? They were waving. And it was so good to see not only that, but it was wonderful to see that plane taking off. I was thinking, no missiles are coming in, no missiles are going out. And there was hope then. And that's what we got to bring back today. Now, there is some hope out there also. Ukraine gave up all of its, the third largest nuclear weapons. And world at one time, 1,700 of them. They gave them up what was called Budapest Memorandum, in which the United States and Russia guaranteed Ukraine's security. So now the task is for them to figure out just what that is. And it sure ain't nuclear weapons, and it sure ain't the invasion of any country. But that's the task right now. And yes, we're at where the Cuban Missile Crisis is pretty well right now. And so far, the petitions, we've stopped that because it was ratified here, not here, but the countries that signed it. When 50 ratified, out of all those people that agreed to it, to start with, it has to go back to like their Senate, like it would here. They'd have to ratify it like a treaty. Well, when 50 did, which happened on January 20th, I think it was, 2021, they ratified it, became international law. It's against the law to have nuclear weapons. And now there's 68 that have signed that. And of course, none of the nuclear nations, the 9 nuclear nations, have not. So we've met with those petitions, our force from WHAM and Veterans for Peace. We've met with congresspeople, some of them that aren't even in office anymore, and our senator's office. 2 of them have signed, McKeown and Omar. Senator Smith's office has been pretty receptive. We've been on a Washington, D.C. talk with their staff. We've met with them 3 or 4 times. But there's still work to be done with that. Some of them say, we don't get a lot of calls on this. So that's really the task right there. The time that we have. I remember, I'm going to kind of close with this, but a friend of mine, who got kicked out of Chile, who got kicked out of South Korea, and was active in nuclear disarmament, now since passed away, a Korean War veteran, Father Jim Sinnott. He said, work while there's still light. So that's what we have to do. I'm sitting next to my wife, maybe she can raise up the clipboards right there. That's one small thing to do right there. It's postcards. We'll put the stamp on it. Or I should say WHAM will. You have to be from Minnesota. Some of you have already signed it. Please, please sign it. And I'll give a pitch too, just like other people have done. When the nuclear freeze was going on, we had a priest come to our church in Richfield. I was on the Social Justice Committee in the early 80s. He was going to walk from where the Trident submarine was docked in Bangor, state of Washington, across the United States, take a ship across the Atlantic and go to Bethlehem where Jesus was born. His name was Father George Zamalka. He was the Catholic priest that blessed the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. He was in favor of that bomb. Then he had a conversion experience. He was going around in an act of repentance to draw consciousness, and he did this. He walked the 2 years it took to him. And what he said at church has stuck with me all these years and petition, and it's still valid today. Like Colleen says, it's going to take a miracle. And what Father Zabolka said at Mass today, he used the gospel of the wedding feast at Cana, where the water was changed into wine. And he said, it's going to take a miracle, but we have our part to play too. He said, just as Mary and Jesus told the people there to bring the jars of water to be changed into wine, we have our jars to bring, and whatever scope you can do. Some of that's petition writing, and there's a big jar down there that you can donate some more if you haven't already. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Yep, we'll keep up the fight. I'm sure I know you will, so we'll all help join you.